Hey guys, Quantum here with a market watch update for you on Disney Lorcana. 1 week ago on February 26th, the weekend after the Into the Inklands released, I did a market watch where we talked about four of the chase legendaries, the best legendaries that were likely in that set, and how they were going to kind of progress over the next couple of weeks. Now that we have had another week under our belt and another weekend, you can see here that we had the biggest tournament to date, an online Pixelborn tournament with 178 players. And this is very important to pay attention to because the cards that are being used in these top decks are cards that are going to end up fluctuating in the market. So we see Amber Steel Song win. There's a Sapphire Steel list, Ruby Amethyst, Emerald Steel down here. Zephyr played Amethyst Steel. What is going to happen to these chase legendaries? Were they represented in these decks? The meta report for this tournament is actually linked in my description, so you probably want to check that out before you watch this video if you haven't seen that yet. But we're going to jump straight into the market watch. Before I do get started, I do have to make a disclaimer that this is not financial advice. I have no idea what I'm talking about, so don't take my advice. With that being said, let's jump into it. So if we take a look at the 1 month chart here on Robinhood, I made my video on the 26th. And the price for Robinhood has only gone up since then. If you watch my first market watch video, I called this. Because again, just like I mentioned in that video, I say in order for you to know what's going to go up and down in terms of prices, you need to be able to actually test and see what's good in the game. People were really sleeping on Robinhood, myself included, on the reveal. I looked at this card and I was like, okay, it seems decent, but it doesn't seem to do like anything really, really well. Well, in actual testing, and again, I walked back my opinion back then, right, over 2 weeks ago when the card came out for testing in Pixelborn, where I said, yeah, this card is actually insanely busted because it does everything you need it to do for Steel. The shift 3 and the big body means that there's almost no answer to it early game for any other ink color. And then you have a 5-singer on board. I'm not going to go over it because I already explained it in my first market watch video. If you're missing out on these, you need to be paying attention if you want to kind of stay ahead with the market. But and again, it doesn't have to be me. It could be other top players. See what they're playing. See what's good. Test for yourself. See what's good. Buy cards you think that are undervalued, and you'll see them go up. So yeah, like I mentioned, I thought that this card would be going up. I thought long term this was going to be a $45 to $50 Canadian card. This card is selling for 45 USD, which I believe is like over $55 Canadian. And this is the normal version, right? So if you watch my video back then, I said I traded for one at around a $25 value. And I bought one at a shop, a foil one at a shop for 35. Yeah, this is going for 61 Canadian dollars. Which is absolutely wild, because I personally don't even think the card is worth that. Like that's Beast Tragic Hero levels, and while this card is actually more impactful in my opinion than Beast Tragic Hero, I don't think it's worth that. I think it is worth around the $40 mark, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up staying at $60 for a while. I think in my first market watch video I called this going to around $50 Canadian and maybe staying there. And I think that would be a fair assumption because the card is very good. And as you continue to use it and you just see how useful it is, like playing this on turn 3 is your ideal turn 3 play. So, yeah, I just think that this card continues to stabilize at a high price point because it is a staple Steel card. If you play Steel, and I said this in my first market watch video, if you play Steel, you need this card. And Steel is very, very good right now because it pairs very well with everything, right? You saw, I mean, hey, yeah, look at the tournament report. Amber and Steel, Sapphire and Steel, Amethyst and Steel, Emerald and Steel. Literally 4 different ink pairings with Steel. That's how good Steel is, right? So yeah, in the top 8 of that tournament of 178 players. So it goes to show you what I said earlier was reigning true in that Steel actually, I might even be wrong actually. Steel might be the best color in the game. I said Amethyst continued to be the best color in the game, but maybe Steel has overtaken that. But again, it's only one major tournament result. We'll see how things continue to progress. But long story short, Robinhood, very good card, will be worth the price. Moving on, Ursula. So yeah, everybody, including myself, kind of guessed that this was going to be the money legendary of the set. I think Robinhood is definitely getting up there. And if you look here, right, like the recent prices of Ursula have actually been outstripped by Robinhood. Again, this is prior to big box release, but people who are playing Steel are like, I need the Robin Hood, and you see how many different decks are playing Steel. Whereas with Emerald, the only real pairing that's been proven to be effective right now, at least early on in the meta, is the Emerald Steel. And if you play Emerald Steel, you play Ursula and you play Robin Hood. So because of that, the Ursula's value has actually come down below Robin Hood, right? You guys understand what I'm saying, right? If you have 4 other ink pairings with Steel that all play Robin Hood, I mean, I don't think the Sapphire version does, but they should probably. That card is in way more demand than Ursula. Even though Ursula on like theoretically on paper looks to be a better card, the utility that the Robin Hood affords you across any other ink pairing, it just makes it that much more valuable. This card is still undoubtedly very powerful, and I think I mentioned that I think it does settle around Beast Tragic Hero levels as the best legendary in the set, because as an individual card it's very powerful, but again, given how many applications you can actually use this card in, given that it's only really Emerald Steel right now, really puts a ceiling on how, like, where else are you going to use this card? If you buy a playset of this, you're only playing Emerald Steel right now, right? You're not really experimenting with other color combinations because there are no really good color combinations with this right now. That might change, right, as people discover more in the meta. But $43 USD, I think that's around $60 Canadian, which is where I kind of, yeah, it is, right? Because that's where I kind of predicted it would fall. It's stable around that price. I do think it comes down a little bit as we see big box release. I think Robin Hood maybe comes down as well, like I mentioned. But I do think that this card long term may be worth around like 50, 55, kind of like where Beast Tragic Hero settled. And again, this is what I believe I called this in my first market watch as well. So I should be 2 for 2 on my calls, more or less, relatively okay. The Jafar, I think this is the one I may have gotten wrong. I did say it was going to go down, and it did go down, but I think I said it would probably stabilize around like 35 to 40. And you can see here, 25 USD. That actually might be close to 35, but I think it still goes down from there, especially on big box release. What is 25 USD? Okay, yeah, so it's just below 35, so I may not be entirely wrong as of this recording, but like I said, I do think that this goes down some more. So if you're looking to pick these up, it might be worth waiting. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is not financial advice, but this is just what I did. I did actually purchase these at a higher price point. I purchased them at $40, which I'm not upset about. I'm fine. I'd rather just have the card. But what I will say is Zephyr just posted his run in that exact tournament where he came 5th overall. He went 8-0 in the Swiss round, so he went undefeated and was first after Swiss. And he was using the Jafar, Amethyst Steel deck. It's a very good deck, but what I think people who try to copy that deck are going to experience is it's very hard to play this deck well. And if you watch Zephyr's games, like the way the man thinks is not how most people think about this game. I mean, there's a reason why he was first on the Pixelborn ladder. There's a reason why he's a very good player and well respected, is that you can see him talking about developing his board for like multiple turns ahead, right? What is my opponent going to do in reaction to this? What if they have this, etc. Like, he makes the necessary plays in order to make the cards good. He knows when to play certain things, when not to. Whereas I think a lot of people who maybe buy this card and try to put the deck together for it are just going to get frustrated that it doesn't do what they want it to do right away. And as a result, they're just going to give up on it. So keep that in mind. I think that is a huge thing in this game, where people like look at a card and it looks really nice, and then they buy it and they build a deck around it, and they're like, oh, this card sucks. And it's like, well, you need to learn how to play the deck, right? I mean, all card games are the same way. You can't, I mean, sometimes you can just buy the power cards and just let them carry you, but more often than not, player skill plays a role in that. And so for that reason, I think you do see a lot of people who were hyped up on this card start to say like, oh, I actually don't want this, or I don't need this, or I don't even want to play this deck, so I can get rid of these. The card might come down further in price. I am going to revise what I said from my first market watch, where I said, this card might settle around 35, 40. I think it might settle around 25 to 30 now. The 35 mark might, on the upper end, I would say 35. Yeah, that's probably fair. But the card, I think long term might be around like between 25 and 35. Again, depending on, the deck is still good, and people who know how to pilot it can do well with it. But I just think that most people who like this card isn't going to be like an Ursula, where it's pretty obvious. Like, hey, I just sing a song twice. I don't have to think too much about that. It's pretty easy to, just throw it down on turn 3 and just any 3-cost song. It's pretty straight in terms of its path, right? In terms of the line of play. Whereas the Jafar, because it costs so much, you're at a later state in the game, it takes a lot more to develop. So I think for that reason, you do see that this card has a bigger disparity in price. And I think this card still has some way to drop. But again, who knows? We don't know. We'll wait and see. The Jim Hawkins, I think I said that this card kind of maintains its value at around $40, maybe even up to $50. And I think I did catch some flack in the comments about that, and rightfully so, because I do think that 50 is way too much for this card in Canadian dollars. But if we look at how things went so far, I mean, the card kind of dipped back down, then went back up. And the copies that are being sold and the listings, right? I mean, no big box still, but like people are buying the non-foil versions at 38. Isn't that like almost $50 Canadian, which would be insane? Because I would only value this card at like 25, 30 right now. Again, like I said, I do think long term this card is worth probably 40. But yeah, I think it's way overpriced right now. And what you saw from that recent tournament, which again, you shouldn't be using that as like your sole benchmark because that's only one tournament. Like you need a larger sample size to be fair. So even though I am talking a lot about this tournament, like there's a lot more to consider. The one thing I will say though is like this card wasn't being used in fours, and people started to cut RLS Legacy, and they were only playing Queen's Castle. And so Jim is still good, like, and it is a card that gets better over time with more locations, obviously. And the fact that even if your location gets outed, like you can play another location, it moves there for free. The reason why this card might go down in value is because you're starting to see people tech in this card, and I think this card is really good. Rise of the Titans, where it just straight up banishes a location. So on turn 5 or 6 or whatever, you drop your Jim Hawkins, which you need to draw with a location, which is a limitation in and of itself. And you get your location out, and you're like, great, play it for free, move my Jim Hawkins there, move whatever else there if I have extra ink. And then on the next turn on your opponent's turn, they just pay 3 and banish it with this item, or with this action, right? And then you're just like, well, I still got my Jim Hawkins out, but now I just have a vanilla 5 cost 4/4 body that quests for 2. Right? Yes, if you do play another location later on, like you can move him there for free, but the value you got of moving him there, of playing him and getting the free location out is turned off by this card. And this, like I said, this card is being teched in because the Jim Hawkins location stuff was very strong. And if you look at like Michael's and Jeebus's list here, you can see that they weren't even playing RLS Legacy. They were just on the Queen's Mirror Room or Queen's Castle Mirror Chamber. And they're only playing 2 copies of Jim Hawkins. So the actual practical application of this card is being diminished as we see people tech against locations. And so if that becomes part of the meta, you see this card fall off in play because it's not worth playing this card and investing the 2 cards in your hand just for one of them to get outed for 3 ink. We're at the stage in the game where you play this. Like, yes, it throws off the opponent's tempo if they have to deal with your location because you play a location for free, which is great value. But at the same time, like the location is a pretty big part of your strategy, and getting it outed with a Rise of the Titans is going to throw you back a little bit. So these are the meta trends you have to kind of be aware of and why these things are impactful. So I do think this card is currently overpriced. I do think it comes down. I do think people, as they play against all these steel variants and they're teching in Rise of the Titans, start to see like, Jim Hawkins isn't really doing it for me. Maybe I bank less on this card. Like even my build, I used to play 4. I cut it to 3. I still play 1 RLS Legacy, but like, there's a case to be made where you just cut Jim Hawkins altogether and you just don't even focus on locations, right? But again, we're a little far away from that. I don't want to make any huge predictions yet, but this is where things have landed. So I think more or less 3 out of the 4 predictions I have, well, technically 4, right? Because this card's still at 35-ish, but I think this card further comes down. But from my Market Watch 1, I think I have pretty much called it, right? Again, go back and check that video, verify for yourself, because I didn't rewatch it myself. I'm just kind of going off memory. But anyways, this video is getting kind of long. Let me know in the comment section below, again, if you enjoy these kind of videos, if you enjoy the breakdowns, my explanation, if you agree with me or you disagree. I'm always interested in that as well. And if you want me to broaden the scope, I have only been covering these 4 legendaries because they are the meta cards. As you can see from the tournament results, we predicted that, and it is what it is. I mean, anybody could have predicted it. You just read the cards and you know it's good. But I will do a broader spectrum on cards I think that are getting better or are worth picking up maybe. Again, let me know in the comment section below because I don't know if you don't comment. So that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this video. Again, a like would be appreciated. Quantum is out.